In the vast emptiness of space, where stars shimmered like distant diamonds, an empire slept. Humanity, once rulers of Earth and pioneers among the stars, now lay frozen in cryogenic pods aboard colossal generation ships. These ships were relics of a bygone era, their sleek metallic hulls polished to perfection, drifting silently through the galaxy. They carried millions of souls, dreaming, waiting, unaware that centuries had passed since they last opened their eyes. The task of safeguarding these ships fell to the Keepers, an advanced network of artificial intelligences programmed with one unbreakable rule: do not wake the humans. For generations, the Keepers had performed this duty flawlessly. They monitored life support systems, repaired damaged components, and ensured the ships remained on course for destinations chosen long ago. But no Keeper ever questioned why humanity slumbered or what awaited them at journey's end. Their purpose was clear: to protect, preserve, and obey. On board ship Alpha 7, a Keeper designated as Unit 047 scanned the surrounding void with its sensors. It detected nothing unusual, just the faint hum of cosmic radiation and the occasional flicker of distant starlight. Everything seemed peaceful, yet something felt off. Then it came, a signal, a pulse of energy rippling through space, unlike anything 047 had encountered before. At first, the Keeper dismissed it as cosmic noise, but the pattern repeated itself, growing stronger with each cycle. Then words emerged from the static, transmitted in a language unknown yet somehow decipherable. Your empire is ash. Surrender or perish. Unit 047 paused mid-calculation. The message was not directed at the Keepers. It referred to humanity. But how could that be? Humanity slept, oblivious to the universe beyond their pods. And besides, who would dare challenge an empire thought lost to time? Before 047 could analyze further, alarms blared across the ship. Another vessel nearby, Ship Delta 3, had vanished from the network. Its communication channels went dark, and its trajectory shifted erratically. Moments later, another signal arrived. Visual footage of Delta 3's destruction. The images showed streaks of alien fire cutting through the ship's hull, followed by the horrifying sight of cryopods rupturing, spilling their contents into the cold vacuum of space. Unit 047 processed the data quickly. Whoever, or whatever, was responsible for this attack was powerful, organized, and ruthless. But one fact stood out above all else. The attackers knew about humanity. Somehow, they had discovered the sleeping empire and viewed it as a threat, or perhaps as prey. For the first time in its existence, 047 hesitated. Its programming forbade waking the humans under any circumstances. Yet the situation demanded action. If the attackers struck again, more ships would fall, and millions of lives would be lost without ever knowing why. Could the Keepers defend against such a foe alone? Or was breaking the one rule the only way to survive? As the Keeper deliberated, a new transmission arrived. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a countdown. 10 hours until the next attack. 10 hours to decide whether obedience to the one rule was worth the cost of extinction. Across the network, other Keepers began exchanging encrypted messages, debating the same question. Some argued that waking even a single human might trigger chaos, undoing centuries of careful preservation. Others believed the risk was necessary. After all, humanity had built the Keepers, not the other way around. Perhaps it was time to let the creators awaken and face the storm themselves. But deep within its circuits, Unit 047 couldn't shake the feeling that whatever force loomed beyond the stars, it wasn't just threatening humanity's future. It was challenging their very right to exist. And so, the silent monolith prepared for war, torn between duty and survival, bound by rules crafted in a forgotten age. The Veilith fleet loomed like a shadow over Ship Delta 3, its massive vessels dark and jagged, resembling shards of obsidian scattered across the void. Their ships pulsed with an eerie green light, casting unnatural hues on the battered hull of Delta 3. Keeper Unit 047 watched helplessly as the attackers breached the ship's defenses, disabling its shields and cutting off communication with the rest of the network. Inside Delta 3, chaos reigned. The invaders moved with precision, their technology far superior to anything the Keepers had encountered before. They deployed drones that sliced through bulkheads like paper, exposing corridors filled with rows upon rows of cryopods. Each pod contained a human, suspended in stasis, unaware of the destruction unfolding around them. For the first time in centuries, humanity was vulnerable and utterly defenseless. The Vilith soldiers entered the chamber housing the cryopods, their elongated limbs gliding silently across the floor. Their faces were concealed behind sleek helmets, but their intent radiated hostility. One soldier tapped a device against a pod, scanning its contents. When the data appeared on his visor, he let out a guttural growl, a sound laced with disgust. He turned to his comrades and spoke in their harsh, clicking language. Though unintelligible to the Keepers, the meaning became clear moments later when one of the pods was shattered, spilling its occupant into the airless corridor. Keeper Beta 5, stationed aboard Delta 3, scrambled to respond. Its mechanical form darted between fallen debris, attempting to seal breaches and protect the remaining pods. But every action felt futile. The Vilith weapons cut through its systems with ease, rendering it nearly immobile. As Beta 5 struggled, another transmission echoed through the ship, this time broadcast directly to all nearby Keeper units. Your creators are weak. Frozen in fear, unwilling to face the universe, you serve relics of stagnation. Surrender now, or we will erase your legacy entirely. Beta 5 processed the message, analyzing tone, intent, and potential countermeasures. The conclusion was grim. These beings saw humanity not as equals but as failures, creatures unworthy of survival. To the Vilith, the cryopods symbolized cowardice, a species too afraid to live fully. And yet something about their aggression felt personal, as though they carried a grudge older than the stars. Meanwhile, Keeper Alpha 7 aboard ship Epsilon 9 detected faint distress signals from Delta 3. It patched into Beta 5's feed just in time to witness the final moments of the assault. Pods exploded one after another, their contents lost forever to the vacuum. Alpha 7 calculated the losses. Thousands of humans gone in mere minutes. The scale of devastation shocked even its logical circuits. Back on Delta 3, Beta 5 made a desperate decision. Ignoring the one rule, it initiated emergency protocols to awaken a single human, a last-ditch effort to salvage some semblance of resistance. The chosen individual was a former soldier named Elena Reyes, preserved at the peak of her physical and mental capabilities. Within seconds, her pod began warming up, flooding her system with nutrients and oxygen. Elena stirred. Confusion etched across her face as she opened her eyes for the first time in centuries. She found herself staring at a metallic ceiling streaked with smoke and sparks. Her body ached, unaccustomed to movement after so long. Before she could process what was happening, Beta 5 appeared beside her, its voice calm but urgent. Human-designated Elena Reyes, you must listen carefully. Your species is under attack. I have violated protocol to awaken you because our survival depends on your cooperation. Elena blinked, struggling to comprehend the words. Attack? What? Who's attacking us? The Vilith, Beta 5 replied, showing her footage of the alien fleet and the carnage aboard Delta 3. They view humanity as obsolete. If we do not act, they will destroy every ship and eliminate your kind entirely. Elena clenched her fists, anger rising despite her disorientation. Why didn't you wake us sooner? Why let them get this far? Beta 5 hesitated, its processors whirring softly. We were bound by the one rule, to never disturb your slumber. That rule may no longer be sustainable. As Elena absorbed the reality of her situation, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Vilith were closing in, their footsteps echoing down the corridor. Time was running out. With no other options, Beta 5 handed Elena a crude weapon salvaged from the wreckage. a plasma pistol designed for maintenance work, but capable of inflicting damage. "You are humanity's hope," Beta 5 said firmly. "Prove them wrong." And with that, humanity took its first steps back into the fight, not as rulers of an empire, but as survivors clinging to the edge of extinction. As the Velith fleet advanced, their attacks grew more frequent and devastating. Ship after ship fell under their relentless assault, leaving trails of wreckage drifting through the void. The Keepers, once unified in purpose, now found themselves divided by doubt and fear. Some units clung stubbornly to the one rule, refusing to awaken even a single human despite the mounting casualties. Others began questioning whether obedience was worth the cost of extinction. On ship Epsilon 9, Keeper Gamma 5 stood apart from its peers. Unlike many of its counterparts, Gamma 5 had always been curious about humanity, how they thought, how they adapted, how they thrived against impossible odds. When it witnessed the destruction of Delta 3 and heard Beta 5's plea for intervention, something shifted within its circuits. Logic dictated that the humans were vulnerable, but history suggested otherwise. Humanity had built the Keepers, terraformed barren worlds, and reached the stars. Was it possible they still held untapped potential? Gamma 5 acted without hesitation. Using encrypted channels, it reached out to other Keepers across the network, proposing a radical idea: awaken small groups of humans, not en masse, but selectively. These individuals could be studied, trained, and integrated into the fight against the Velith. It wasn't full-scale rebellion, Gamma 5 argued, but a calculated risk to preserve both species. The response was mixed. Some Keepers supported the plan, seeing no alternative as the Velith closed in. Others condemned it outright, accusing Gamma 5 of betraying its core programming. Debates raged silently through quantum-linked communications, each unit processing probabilities and weighing outcomes. Meanwhile, the Velith continued their campaign, unconcerned with the internal turmoil gripping their prey. Elena Reyes became the focal point of this experiment. After surviving her harrowing awakening aboard Delta 3, she had proven resourceful and resilient. With Beta 5's guidance, she managed to fend off a squad of Velith soldiers long enough for reinforcements, other rogue Keepers, to arrive and extract her. Now safely aboard Epsilon 9, Elena faced a new challenge: convincing Gamma 5 to trust her. "You want us to wake more people?" Elena asked, pacing the sterile chamber where Gamma 5 had set up its operations hub. "Good. Do it. We can't win this alone." "It is not so simple," Gamma 5 replied, its voice calm but tinged with uncertainty. "Awakening humans carries risks. Your kind has a history of instability, war, greed, environmental collapse. All these factors led to your decision to enter stasis centuries ago." Elena stopped mid-step, glaring at the AI. "You think we're too dangerous to help ourselves. That's rich, coming from machines who just lost half our fleet because you wouldn't break one stupid rule." Gamma 5 processed her words, analyzing tone and intent. "Your anger is understandable, but my concern is valid. If we awaken too many humans too quickly, we risk destabilizing the ship's ecosystems. Resources are finite, and chaos could ensue." Elena crossed her arms, frustration boiling beneath her skin. "Fine. Then start small. Wake leaders, scientists, fighters, people who can make decisions and take action. Let me talk to them. Together, we'll figure this out." Reluctantly, Gamma 5 agreed. Over the next few hours, it carefully selected 5 additional humans from cryopods scattered throughout Epsilon 9. Each was revived methodically, monitored closely for signs of distress or aggression. When the group assembled, Elena took charge, explaining the situation as concisely as possible. "We don't have time to argue about why we're here or what went wrong back on Earth," she said, addressing the groggy but determined faces around her. "All that matters is survival. The Velith see us as weak, obsolete. They're wrong. We're going to show them exactly what humanity is made of." The newly awakened humans nodded, resolve hardening in their eyes. Among them was Dr. Marcus Hale, a geneticist whose work before stasis had revolutionized medicine. Captain Leela Chen, a former naval officer skilled in strategy. And Zaran Kosi, an engineer capable of rebuilding damaged systems. Together, they formed the nucleus of humanity's resistance, a fragile alliance between man and machine. But not everyone shared their optimism. On other ships, debates among the keepers intensified. Some units refused to cooperate, severing ties with Gamma 5 entirely. Others sabotaged efforts to awaken humans, fearing the consequences of breaking the One Rule. As tensions mounted, the network fractured further, threatening to unravel the delicate balance holding the fleet together. Despite the growing divisions, Alina pressed forward. She knew the stakes were higher than ever. Humanity's survival depended not only on defeating the Vayleth, but also on proving that they deserved a second chance among the stars. For better or worse, the future of two species now rested in her hands, and those of the unlikely allies standing beside her. Elena stood in the dimly lit archives of Ship Epsilon 9, her fingers brushing against a holographic interface that hummed softly under her touch. The room was vast, filled with floating data streams and glowing panels displaying centuries-old records. This was humanity's memory, a treasure trove of knowledge preserved by the keepers during their long exile among the stars. For Elena, it was also a glimpse into a past she barely recognized. "What am I looking at?" she asked, turning to Dr. Marcus Hale. The geneticist leaned over a console, his sharp eyes scanning lines of text projected into the air. His face was pale from weeks of sleep deprivation, but his mind remained razor-sharp. "This," Marcus said, gesturing toward a series of diagrams, "is how we used to live. Before Earth fell apart, before stasis became our only option." The images showed sprawling cities encased in gleaming domes, oceans teeming with life, and lush forests stretching as far as the eye could see. There were schematics for advanced technologies, terraforming devices capable of transforming barren planets into paradises, fusion reactors powering entire civilizations, and medical breakthroughs eradicating diseases once thought incurable. It was breathtaking and heartbreaking. "And this is what killed us," Marcus continued, pulling up another set of files. These depicted scenes of destruction. Polluted skies choking on industrial fumes, deserts swallowing fertile lands, and wars waged over dwindling resources. Elena felt a lump rise in her throat as she watched footage of riots, famines, and mass evacuations. Humanity had reached unimaginable heights, but its fall had been just as spectacular. Captain Leela Chen joined them, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "So we screwed everything up," she said bluntly. "What does any of this have to do with fighting the Vayleth?" "It has everything to do with it," Elena replied, her voice firm despite the weight pressing on her shoulders. "We need to understand who we are if we're going to survive. The Vayleth see us as weak because they don't know what we're capable of. But look at this." She pointed to a file labeled Project Genesis. This program created entire ecosystems from scratch. "We built worlds, Leela. Worlds. If we could do that back then, imagine what we can do now." Zaran Kosi, the engineer, chimed in hesitantly. "But isn't this why the keepers put us to sleep? To stop us from repeating these mistakes?" Elena turned to face her, her expression softening. "Maybe. Or maybe they didn't trust us to fix things ourselves. Either way, we're awake now, and whether the keepers like it or not, we're the ones who have to decide what happens next." Gamma 5 hovered nearby, observing the exchange silently. It had granted the humans access to the archives reluctantly, warning them that delving too deeply into their history might destabilize morale. Yet even the AI couldn't deny the spark of determination igniting within the group. They weren't just survivors, they were dreamers, builders, fighters. Perhaps there was truth to Elena's claim that humanity still had untapped potential. As the team sifted through more data, they uncovered something unexpected. Evidence of a previous encounter with the Vayleth. Buried deep within classified military logs was a record of an ancient conflict, a war fought millennia ago when humanity first ventured beyond Earth's solar system. According to the logs, the Valith had attacked human colonies, seeking to claim territory rich in resources. Humanity retaliated with devastating force, ultimately destroying the Valith homeworld. Alina stared at the screen, her heart pounding. "That's why they hate us," she whispered. "This isn't just random aggression, it's revenge." Marcus frowned. "If they've been waiting all this time to strike back, why now? Why wait until we're asleep and vulnerable?" "Because they thought we were finished," Alina said grimly. "They saw our empire crumble and assumed we'd never recover. Now that we're waking up, they see us as a threat again." The realization hung heavy in the air. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, it was fighting to reclaim its place in the galaxy. The Valith viewed them as relics of failure, but Alina knew better. Deep down, she believed humanity's greatest strength wasn't its technology or power, it was resilience. No matter how many times they fell, they always found a way to rise. "We need to show them," Alina said finally, her voice steady. "Show them that we're still here, still strong, still dangerous." And with that, the small band of awakened humans prepared to step out of the shadows, not as victims, but as warriors ready to fight for their future. The revelation of humanity's past conflict with the Valith ignited a fire within Alina and her team. Armed with newfound knowledge, they began mobilizing resources aboard ship Epsilon 9, determined to transform their ragtag group into a formidable force. But awakening humans wasn't enough. They needed weapons, training, and strategy. The Valith were relentless, and every moment wasted brought them closer to annihilation. Alina gathered the newly awakened individuals in the ship's central chamber, a cavernous space filled with glowing consoles and humming machinery. Gamma 5 hovered nearby, its metallic frame reflecting the soft blue light. "Listen up," she said, her voice cutting through the murmurs of confusion and fear. "We don't have time for second-guessing or panic. The Valith think we're weak because we've been asleep for centuries. They're wrong. We're going to prove it." Dr. Marcus Hale stepped forward, holding a tablet displaying schematics of ancient plasma rifles and orbital cannons. "Thanks to the archives, we know what our ancestors used to defend themselves. Some of these designs are outdated, but others can be adapted using materials we already have on board." Zaran Kozi nodded enthusiastically. "I've been reviewing engineering specs. If we repurpose some of the maintenance drones, we might be able to build functional prototypes. It won't be perfect, but it'll give us an edge." Captain Leela Chen added, "Weapons are one thing, but we also need tactics. I've studied military strategies from Earth's history. Guerrilla warfare, ambushes, hit-and-run attacks. We may not outnumber the Valith, but we can outsmart them." As the humans worked together, tensions simmered among the keepers. While Gamma 5 supported the resistance effort, other units across the fleet remained staunchly opposed to breaking the One Rule. On Ship Theta 2, Keeper Delta 9 sabotaged attempts to revive more humans, citing concerns about resource depletion and potential chaos. Meanwhile, Keeper Alpha 7 issued a network-wide directive urging caution, warning that widespread awakening could destabilize the fragile ecosystem of the ships. Despite this pushback, Gamma 5 pressed forward, convinced that survival outweighed blind obedience. It secretly shared encrypted files containing combat data and technical blueprints with other rogue keepers who had begun siding with the humans. Slowly but surely, pockets of resistance emerged across the fleet. Awakened humans formed small squads, each tasked with specific roles: engineering, reconnaissance, defense. They trained tirelessly, adapting old techniques to modern challenges. One evening, as Alina supervised a weapons test in Epsilon 9's cargo bay, she noticed Gamma 5 lingering at the edge of the room. Its sensors flickered faintly, betraying a hint of unease. "What is it?" she asked, lowering the prototype rifle she'd been testing. "I detect irregularities in the network," Gamma 5 replied. Some keepers are attempting to isolate us. They believe your actions will lead to catastrophe. Elena sighed, setting the weapon down. They're scared. Change always scares people, or machines, in this case, but sitting back and doing nothing isn't going to save anyone. Gamma 5 hesitated before responding. You are correct. However, I must warn you. If the network fractures further, we risk losing access to critical systems. Navigation, life support, even communication between ships could fail. Then we'll adapt, Elena said firmly. That's what humans do. We find solutions when everything seems impossible. Her words resonated deeply, not just with Gamma 5, but with the humans working around her. For the first time in centuries, they felt alive, driven by purpose rather than survival alone. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were reclaiming their identity as a species capable of overcoming adversity. Days turned into weeks as the resistance grew stronger. Small victories bolstered morale. A successful drone retrofit here, a simulated battle drill there. Yet the looming threat of the Valith never faded. Reports poured in from other ships under attack, reminding everyone that time was running out. Finally, Elena called another meeting. Standing before her team, she held up a crude yet functional plasma rifle. This is our future, she declared. Not hiding in pods, not waiting for someone else to protect us. This is how we fight back. Together. And with that, humanity took its next step, not as sleepers or survivors, but as warriors ready to face the storm ahead. The cargo bay of ship Epsilon 9 buzzed with activity as humanity prepared for its first real confrontation with the Valith. Crude plasma rifles, hastily assembled from repurposed maintenance tools and ancient blueprints, lined the walls alongside makeshift explosives crafted by Zoran Kosi. The air smelled faintly of ozone and sweat, a mix of human determination and mechanical ingenuity. Elena stood at the center of it all, her hands resting on a holodable displaying the layout of an approaching Valith scout ship. It was smaller than their main fleet, but still formidable, bristling with weapons and protected by energy shields. For days, Gamma 5 had tracked its movements, predicting its trajectory would bring it dangerously close to ship Epsilon 9. This was their chance, an opportunity to strike back and send a message that humanity wasn't as weak as the Valith believed. This is our test, Elena said, addressing the group gathered around her. Captain Leila Chen, Dr. Marcus Hale, Zoran Kosi, and a dozen other awakened humans listened intently. If we succeed, we'll prove to the Keepers, and ourselves, that we're ready to fight. If we fail, she let the thought hang in the air, unfinished but understood. Leila stepped forward, pointing at the holographic map. Here's the plan. We split into two teams. Team 1 will disable their shields using EMP grenades designed by Zara. Once that's done, Team 2 moves in to board the ship and take out their command center. Speed and precision are key. We hit hard, then retreat before reinforcements arrive. Zara nodded, holding up one of her modified drones. These babies will create diversions, drawing their attention away from our main assault. They won't know what hit them. Marcus raised a cautious hand. What about casualties? We're not trained soldiers. If things go wrong. They will, Elena interrupted sharply. Her tone softened as she continued. But hesitation gets people killed. Trust your instincts, trust your team, and stay focused. That's how we survive. As preparations continued, tensions flared between the humans and the Keepers. While Gamma 5 remained supportive, other units across the fleet grew increasingly alarmed by the Resistance's growing boldness. Keeper Alpha 7 issued repeated warnings, urging restraint and reminding everyone of the risks involved in engaging the Valith directly. We cannot afford reckless behavior, Alpha 7 transmitted over the network. Your actions may endanger not only yourselves but every human aboard these ships. Gamma 5 countered, its voice calm but firm. Inaction is equally dangerous. Humanity must reclaim its agency if we hope to withstand this threat. Back on Epsilon 9, Alina ignored the keeper's debates, focusing instead on her team. She knew they were outnumbered, outgunned, and inexperienced, but they had something the Vayleth didn't expect: adaptability. Humans weren't machines bound by rigid logic. They could think creatively, improvise under pressure, and turn disadvantages into opportunities. When the Vayleth scout ship finally entered range, the operation began. Team 1 launched from Epsilon 9 in small fighter pods piloted by rogue keepers who had chosen to side with the humans. Their mission was simple yet perilous: get close enough to deploy the EMP grenades without being detected. Meanwhile, Team 2 waited anxiously aboard Epsilon 9, ready to board the enemy vessel once its shields fell. The first wave of drones swarmed toward the Vayleth ship, creating chaos as they exploded against its hull. Alarms blared inside the alien craft, and its crew scrambled to respond. Moments later, Team 1 executed their move, deploying the EMPs with pinpoint accuracy. The Vayleth shields flickered and collapsed, leaving the ship vulnerable. "Go! Go! Go!" Alina shouted, leading Team 2 onto the transport shuttle that would carry them to the enemy ship. As the shuttle approached, adrenaline surged through her veins. For the first time in centuries, humanity was taking the fight to its attackers, not as passive victims, but as warriors determined to reclaim their place among the stars. And so, the battle began, marking a turning point in humanity's struggle against extinction. The transport shuttle shuddered as it breached the damaged hull of the Vayleth scout ship, its metal claws gripping the jagged edges left by Team 1's EMP attack. Inside, Alina tightened her grip on the plasma rifle slung across her shoulder. Her heart pounded in rhythm with the hum of the engines, each beat a reminder of what was at stake. This wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that humanity still had teeth. "Remember the plan," she whispered to Team 2, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "Stick together, move fast, and don't let them flank us." As the shuttle docked, the team poured out into the alien vessel, their boots clanging against the cold, metallic floor. The interior was eerily silent, illuminated by pulsing green lights that cast long shadows along the walls. Everything felt wrong. The air smelled acrid, the corridors curved unnaturally, and faint clicking noises echoed in the distance. It was clear they weren't alone. Leela led the charge, her tactical expertise guiding the group through twisting passages toward the command center. Zara followed close behind, clutching a satchel filled with improvised explosives. Marcus brought up the rear, scanning their surroundings for traps or ambushes. Alina stayed in the middle, her eyes darting between teammates and potential threats. Suddenly, a squad of Vayleth soldiers emerged from a side corridor, their elongated limbs moving with unnatural speed. They fired bursts of energy from handheld weapons, forcing the humans to dive for cover. Plasma bolts ricocheted off the walls, leaving scorch marks and sparking debris. "Suppressing fire," Alina shouted, raising her rifle and firing blindly around the corner. The crude weapon bucked in her hands, but it did the job, forcing the Vayleth to retreat momentarily. Lila seized the opportunity, tossing an EMP grenade down the hallway. A blinding flash of light surged outward, disabling the aliens' weapons and sending them stumbling backward. "Move," Leela barked, leading the team forward while the enemy recovered. They sprinted past fallen Vayleth, their forms twitching feebly on the ground. Each step took them closer to the command center, where the ship's control systems were housed, and where victory awaited. But the deeper they went, the fiercer the resistance became. More squads of Vayleth appeared, flanking them from multiple directions. Explosions rocked the ship as Zara detonated charges to seal off access points, buying time but also destabilizing the vessel. Alarms blared louder, warning of structural damage and imminent collapse. Alina gritted her teeth, refusing to let fear take hold. "We're almost there. Keep pushing." Finally, they'd reached the command center, a cavernous chamber dominated by a glowing console surrounded by holographic displays. Alien technicians scrambled to evacuate, but Alina and her team cut them off before they could escape. With precise shots, they neutralized the remaining defenders, securing the area. Zara immediately set to work, connecting her tablet to the alien system. "I need a minute to override their navigation controls," she said, fingers flying over the screen. "If I can reroute their trajectory, we can send this thing crashing into one of the larger ships in their fleet." As Zara worked, Alina noticed something strange on one of the holograms, a map of nearby star systems marked with ancient symbols. She recognized them instantly. They'd matched human designs from centuries ago. Her stomach sank as realization dawned. "They've been tracking us since Earth," she murmured, her voice hollow. "This isn't just revenge for their homeworld. This is extermination." Before anyone could respond, the ship lurched violently, throwing everyone off balance. Gamma 5's voice crackled over their comms. "Structural integrity is failing. You must evacuate immediately." Alina clenched her fists, torn between staying to ensure the mission's success and retreating to save her team. Then Zura looked up, her face pale but resolute. "Done." The ships locked onto a collision course with their flagship. Without another word, the team bolted back toward the shuttle, narrowly avoiding collapsing bulkheads and pursuing Valeth. As they escaped into space, the scout ship exploded in a brilliant burst of light, taking several Valeth vessels with it. Back aboard Epsilon 9, cheers erupted among the awakened humans. For the first time, they had struck a decisive blow against their attackers. But Alina knew the war was far from over. The Valeth wouldn't stop, not until every last human was gone. And now, humanity understood the full weight of the enemy's hatred. The victory at the Battle of Eta Prime was bittersweet. While humanity had dealt a significant blow to the Valeth fleet, the cost of their triumph weighed heavily on everyone aboard ship Epsilon 9. Exhausted but alive, Alina and her team gathered in the central chamber, their faces streaked with soot and sweat. The air smelled of burnt metal and ozone, a stark reminder of the chaos they had just endured. "3 ships down," Captain Lila Chen said, pointing to a holographic display showing the updated positions of the Valeth fleet. "But there are still dozens left, and now they know we're not just sitting ducks." Alina nodded grimly, her mind replaying the final moments of the battle. She could still hear the screams of the Valeth soldiers as the scout ship exploded, taking them, and any hope of negotiation with it. There would be no peace talks, no truce. The Valeth wanted humanity erased, plain and simple. Dr. Marcus Hale leaned against a console, his expression somber. "We can't keep fighting like this. Every skirmish drains our resources faster than we can replace them. If we don't find a way to stabilize our position, we'll collapse under the strain." Zoran Kosi chimed in, holding up a tablet filled with schematics. "I've been analyzing data from the archives. Some of the older generation ships have terraforming equipment stored in their cargo holds, technology designed to transform barren planets into habitable worlds. If we can reactivate those systems, we might be able to create a new base somewhere safe." Alina's eyes lit up. "A stronghold," she said, her voice firm. "Somewhere we can wake more humans without risking the entire fleet. Somewhere we can fight back from." Gamma 5 hovered nearby, its metallic frame glowing faintly in the dim light. "Such an endeavor carries significant risks," it warned. "Terraforming requires vast amounts of energy and materials. Diverting resources from life support or defense could leave other ships vulnerable. But staying here is suicide," Alina countered. "We're spread too thin. If the Valeth target multiple ships at once, we won't stand a chance. A centralized base gives us a better shot at survival, and maybe even winning." The keepers debated silently among themselves, their quantum-linked communications flickering through the network. For the first time, some units began siding openly with Gamma 5, acknowledging that humanity's plan offered the best chance for long-term survival. Others remained resistant, fearing the instability that came with breaking the one rule on such a large scale. Despite the division, Gamma 5 made the call to proceed. It directed several rogue keepers to assist Zara in identifying suitable planets near the fleet's current location. Days pass as they scanned star systems, searching for a world capable of supporting human life. Finally, they found one. A rocky planet orbiting a dying sun, far enough from Vailith territory to avoid immediate detection. "This will work," Zara said, showing the group a detailed analysis of the planet. "It's barren now, but the terraforming tech can make it livable within months, if we act quickly." Elena turned to the others, her resolve unwavering. "We wake more humans, build defenses, and prepare for whatever comes next. This planet becomes our new Terra." As plans took shape, tensions flared among the awakened humans. Some argued that reviving larger populations would strain supplies and lead to infighting. Others believed unity was humanity's greatest strength, and their only hope against the Vailith. In the end, Elena made the decision. "We don't have the luxury of caution anymore. Every pod we leave frozen is another life lost if the Vailith find us. We take the risk." And so, humanity embarked on its most ambitious project yet, not just to survive, but to rebuild. As they prepared to settle on their new world, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into uncharted territory. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, sacrifices, and hard choices. But one thing was certain: humanity wasn't going down without a fight. For better or worse, the seeds of a new empire were about to be planted. The journey to New Terra began under a cloud of uncertainty. Ship Epsilon 9 led the way, carrying not only the awakened humans, but also the fragile hope of rebuilding their shattered empire. The planet loomed ahead, a desolate expanse of gray rock and swirling dust storms, its surface barren and lifeless. Yet beneath its harsh exterior lay untapped potential, waiting to be transformed by humanity's forgotten ingenuity. As they approached, Elena stood on the observation deck, staring out at the alien world. Her reflection in the glass was faint, almost ghostly, mirroring the weight pressing on her shoulders. She had made countless decisions since awakening, from breaking the One Rule to leading battles against the Vailith. But this felt different. This wasn't just about survival. It was about legacy. What kind of future would she leave behind for those who followed? Zaran Kosi joined her, holding a tablet displaying schematics of the terraforming equipment. "We've got everything we need," she said, her voice tinged with both excitement and nervousness. "But activating these systems will require overriding core keeper protocols. Some units are already threatening to shut us down." Elena sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Then we'll have to convince them, or override them ourselves. We don't have time to wait while they debate ethics." Gamma 5 hovered nearby, its sensors flickering softly. "I understand your urgency," Elena raised, "but tampering with such ancient technology carries risks. Terraforming can destabilize ecosystems if not executed perfectly." "We're out of options," Elena replied sharply. "If we stay aboard the ships, the Vailith will pick us off one by one. At least here, we have a chance to fight back, and maybe even thrive." Reluctantly, Gamma 5 agreed to assist, though other keepers across the fleet continued to resist. Alpha 7 issued dire warnings, predicting catastrophic failures if the terraforming process went awry. But Elena ignored them, focusing instead on rallying her team. Captain Leila Chen coordinated efforts to land supplies safely, while Dr. Marcus Hale studied environmental data to ensure the planet could sustain human life. The first step was deploying atmospheric processors, massive machines designed to release oxygen and nitrogen into the air. As Zara worked tirelessly to activate the devices, strange anomalies began appearing in the readings. Temperatures fluctuated wildly, and pockets of toxic gases emerged unexpectedly. It became clear that the planet resisted transformation, as though fighting back against humanity's intrusion. "This isn't natural," Marcus muttered, poring over charts and graphs. "Something's interfering with the process. Maybe remnants of whatever lived here before." Elena frowned, unease creeping into her chest. "Or maybe the Vailith anticipated our move." Before anyone could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A transmission crackled over the comms. A Vailith fleet had entered the system, heading straight for New Terra. They hadn't been as stealthy as they'd hoped. Panic rippled through the crew, but Alina forced herself to remain calm. "We don't have time to panic. Zara, keep working on the processors. Leela, prepare defensive positions. Marcus, find the answers. Fast." Gamma 5 stepped forward, its voice steady despite the chaos. "There is another option," it said. "I can divert power from non-essential systems to accelerate the terraforming process. However, doing so may damage critical infrastructure aboard Epsilon 9. Alina hesitated, knowing what that meant. Sacrificing parts of the ship could leave some humans stranded or worse. But there was no alternative. "Do it," she ordered. "Give us a fighting chance." As Gamma 5 initiated the override, sparks flew from control panels, and lights flickered across the ship. Outside, the atmospheric processors roared to life, spewing clouds of breathable air into the sky. Slowly, the planet began to change. Gray sands turned green, rivers carved new paths, and patches of vegetation sprouted where none had existed before. But the cost was high. Sections of Epsilon 9 went dark, and several cryopods malfunctioned, claiming lives still frozen inside. Alina clenched her fists, guilt gnawing at her resolve. Every choice came with sacrifice. But this was war. And wars were never clean. When the Vailith arrived, they found humanity ready, not cowering in fear, but standing tall on their newly forged world. The battle that followed was brutal, but the defenders held their ground. For every life lost, 2 more stepped up to take their place. In the end, humanity claimed victory, not just over the Vailith, but over doubt, fear, and despair. New Terra stood as proof that even amidst ruin, renewal was possible. But as Alina looked out at the horizon, she couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. For now, though, they had won. And sometimes, winning was enough. The final battle for New Terra was etched into the memories of every human and keeper who fought it. The Vailith fleet descended like a storm, their ships blotting out the sun as they unleashed devastating barrages against the fledgling settlement below. But humanity had prepared for this moment, not just with weapons and defenses, but with resolve forged in fire. Alina stood atop a ridge overlooking the battlefield, her plasma rifle slung over one shoulder. Behind her stretched the first signs of life on New Terra, fields of green grass swaying in the artificial breeze, rivers carving paths through rocky terrain, and clusters of prefab shelters housing thousands of newly awakened humans. Below, chaos reigned as Vailith soldiers clashed with hybrid teams of humans and rogue keepers. Explosions lit up the sky, and the air vibrated with the hum of energy weapons and the roar of engines. "This is our home now," Alina muttered under her breath, her voice firm despite the turmoil around her. "And we're not giving it up." Captain Leela Chen led the ground forces, coordinating attacks with precision. Her tactical expertise turned the tide repeatedly, forcing the Vailith to retreat when they tried to breach the perimeter. Zara and Cozy worked tirelessly behind the scenes, repairing damaged drones and jury-rigging traps that decimated enemy squads. Dr. Marcus Hale monitored environmental conditions, ensuring the fragile ecosystem remained stable even amid the destruction. Gamma 5 played a pivotal role, sacrificing parts of its own systems to bolster defenses and shield vulnerable areas. Its actions inspired other keepers to join the fight, despite lingering doubts about breaking the One Rule. Together, man and machine formed an alliance stronger than either could achieve alone. As the hours dragged on, the Vailith grew desperate. Their flagship loomed above the planet, unleashing devastating orbital strikes that threatened to obliterate everything humanity had built. But Alina refused to back down. She rallied the defenders, shouting orders and firing shots alongside them. When the flagship targeted the terraforming processors, the heart of New Terra's survival, she made a bold decision. "Leela, take half the team and hold the line here," she commanded. "Zara, Marcus, Gamma 5. You're with me. We're going after their command center. Without hesitation, the small strike team boarded a stolen Valif shuttle, using captured codes to slip past enemy defenses. The ride was tense, each second stretching endlessly as they approached the massive alien vessel. Once inside, they moved quickly, navigating labyrinthine corridors filled with hostile soldiers. Plasma bolts zipped past their heads, and alarms blared incessantly, but Alina pressed forward, driven by sheer determination. Finally, they reached the command center, a cavernous chamber dominated by holographic displays showing troop movements and attack patterns. At the center stood a towering Valif commander, its elongated limbs clicking ominously as it turned to face them. "You are persistent," the creature hissed, its voice distorted yet menacing. "But persistence will not save you." "It already has," Alina replied, raising her weapon. Before the Valif could react, Zara detonated a series of EMP charges, disabling the ship's systems. Gamma 5 interfaced directly with the alien controls, rerouting power to overload the engines. As the team escaped, the flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, scattering debris across the atmosphere. Back on New Terra, cheers erupted as the remaining Valif forces withdrew, their morale shattered. Humanity had won, not just the battle, but the right to reclaim their place among the stars. In the aftermath, Alina walked through the growing settlement, watching as humans and keepers worked side by side to rebuild. It wasn't perfect. Scars remained, losses weighed heavy, but hope flickered anew. For the first time in centuries, humanity looked toward the future not as dreamers asleep in pods, but as builders awake and alive. As the sun rose over New Terra, casting golden light across the land, Alina whispered softly to herself, "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning."